I'm Nancy Swanson, and this is Noah Swanson, and this is my daughter, Sydney Swanson. And my husband is Scott Swanson. Around 6 months old, Noah started getting chronic ear infections. We were going to the pediatrician's office about every 2 weeks. He would have 10 days of antibiotics, and then as soon as his 10 days were up, he would start a fever again, and then we would be right back. We were at Disneyland. His fever maintained around 101, but as soon as we got back to our motorhome that evening, it jumped up to 104. And I literally called our pediatrician here in Phoenix and was like, should I take him in? What should we do? And they said, just continue to give him Tylenol and just check him and then call back in a couple of days. As soon as I got off the phone, he had a febrile seizure. I ended up calling 911. We were immediately transferred to the Children's Hospital in California, where he had his first bone marrow biopsy, and he was 10 months old. At that point, they determined that he had severe neutropenia, and we were immediately told to come back to Phoenix and seek a hematologist here at Phoenix Children's Hospital. They decided to do a second bone marrow biopsy a year later after the original one, and at that point, his cells came back dysplastic. 3 months after that, they did his third bone marrow biopsy, and we got the official diagnosis of myelodysplastic syndrome, and he just had turned 2 years old. We were told there is no medical treatment for myelodysplastic syndrome, that he would have to automatically get a bone marrow transplant or a cord blood transplant at that time. A simple blood test would have determined so much, and our pediatrician was so upset with herself for not doing that. And she learned a lesson. She apologized. She's like, he came in symptomatic every time he came in. However, if we would have done just a simple blood test, we would have seen that his white blood count was severely low. He was on the registry for a year and a half, and we were told because we are Caucasian that we should not have a problem finding either one. However, we do have some Native American on my mom's side of the family, and it ended up being the genetic factor that caused us to have some issues in finding him a match donor. After a year and a half of being on the registry for bone marrow and cord blood, they had found 2 non-related cord donors that was a good enough match for him. And at that point, they decided to move forward with one of those. Well, it doesn't have to be a perfect match in order for people to have a transplant. It has to be a good enough match. What they're trying to match up is the tissue typing. And in our case, we were lucky enough that he had a 4 out of 6 match. In addition to, it was a perfect blood type match. What cord blood is, it's baby cells that are brand new that is being put into a person's system, and those cells grow to a maturity. Because they're baby cells, it's like he was almost like a newborn again, and they have to mature into adult cells. And what people don't realize is those cells are magical. Went into the hospital a month early for testing. They did full-on testing of every blood structure, bone structure. They tested everything to get a baseline of him medically. They did even a psychological evaluation. A week prior to his transplant, he was admitted into the hospital, and he received his first central lines in his chest. They literally destroyed all of his cells in his system, and then gave him a day of recuperating from it, and then he received his stem cells on July 5th, 2013. Oh, you want to show your lines? When he went into the hospital the week before his transplant, he actually received his transplant through the lines. Well, it's tissue typing, and even with siblings, it's 1 out of 4 could potentially be a match. It really looks like getting blood. He was obviously confined to a hospital bed. They had monitors. They monitored his heart rate, his blood pressure, and over a 2-hour period, he was slowly giving those new cells. And they monitored him throughout the day to see if he had any type of a reaction. It took several weeks for us to know that the stem cells had taken, and they would test him daily, test his blood, and they would test his white blood count, his platelets, and his red. I believe it was 28 days after transplant, we realized that the transplant had taken.
I was in 2 houses. One was a hospital, one was a regular house. And I couldn't quite understand why Noah got so upset. And my mom and dad tried to cheer me up, but it was pretty hard. Once I knew that the transplant was over, I was pretty relieved.
Well, I would never wish this upon anybody, having to go through an experience like this. However, my son's alive. He is thriving. He is a normal 5.5-year-old. He is going to have a good quality of life. The outcome was really good. You know, he is now he no longer has myelodysplastic syndrome, and he's 2 years post-transplant. We're making big strides. He's going to be able to start kindergarten this year, which is exciting for him. He got to go to preschool this year, which he was never able to go before, because even before transplant, there was concerns of all the germs and the infections that would go around. But long term, he's cured, and that's all that matters. It's the gift of life. And that gift of life is just going to continue. Who knows? It could regenerate, limbs and, eyesight and hearing. I mean, we just don't know what the future holds. It is the most wonderful gift a mother and a family can give to another mother and another family. Even if we would have saved his cord blood and privately banked it, it would have never done him any good. The family that decided to donate their cord blood saved my child's life.
Please donate your cord blood.
It saves lives.
It saves lives.
It saved mine.
It saved mine.
It saved my brother.